Still, stimulus is the number one thing on investors' minds right now and impacting market sentiment. And to discuss that and so much more about the markets is Chris Markowski. He's the host of the Watchdog on Wall Street Radio, as well as president of Markowski Investments. Great to have you with us on the show today. So every single day, Chris, we see upward movements, downward movements based on stimulus, based on vaccine development. What do you think is the main thing driving investor sentiment today and in even the last few weeks?
Yeah, it is a bit like Groundhog Day, is it not? What's going to happen with stimulus? Is Mnuchin getting together with Pelosi? What's going to happen next? It's a temper tantrum. The markets want to see this major injection of money, fly the helicopter over the country and just drop it, thinking it's going to land in many of their balance sheets in some way, shape, matter, or form, and they could care less at this point in time. It's interesting to kind of watch this, is because how a lot of these financial companies out there kind of hedging based upon who's going to win the presidency and how much more of a stimulus there's going to be if Joe Biden wins versus Donald Trump, and they're using this as a form of calculus. That to me makes me a little bit nervous. If we're going to just continue to print money from now until I don't know when, it puts us into a bit of a black hole. At some point in time, we've got to get on sound footing, and we can't rely on the Fed and monetizing all of this and continuing to just fly over the country and drop cash.
Chris, even more concerning, or adding to the concern, is the fact that we're seeing coronavirus cases rising in certain regions. According to Johns Hopkins, cases growing by 5% or more in 38 states as of Friday. How much worse could things get, economically speaking, if we don't see stimulus enacted from the federal government before 2021?
Well, I think it's what type of stimulus. If we send $1,200 checks out to people, what is it really going to do? People that cannot go back to work, they need unemployment. I mean, it's not their fault that their governor or their leader says, okay, you can't open up the restaurant, you can't open up Broadway or whatever it may be. They're going to need help, and they're going to need to come up with something for that. We're also going to need to help out people that want to go out there and restart businesses at some point in time. Haphazardly just, tossing stimulus, throwing money at a wall is just not going to make things better. It most certainly needs to be targeted. Now, as far as the COVID cases and the uptick that we're seeing, and again, it ebbs and it flows back and forth. My biggest concern is what I'm looking at is hospitalizations and also the death toll that goes along with it. And we've done a much, much better job as of late in treating this disease, and I think that we can be encouraged by that.
As you mentioned, throwing money against a wall doesn't always work. But when we talk about targeted stimulus, what are the specific industries you think need the most targeted stimulus? For example, we've talked about airlines, potential bailouts having an outsized impact on their business due to the pandemic. So which industries do you think, if they get an outsized amount of stimulus, how will that actually impact the overall economy?
Well, the airlines got a ton of money already. I don't know how long you're going to be able to keep that going. How do you go about targeting restaurants? How do you go about targeting the hotel industry? Where last week there was a report that came out that said more than 50% of hotels may close down if we don't get up and running over the next 6 months. I don't know. It's going to be very difficult. Is there enough money to go around? And how do we go about choosing these things? Because, it's the whole concept of essential jobs and essential workers. Aren't they all essential? Isn't a worker that is, working in a hotel, washing dishes or whatever it may be, aren't they essential too? They're essential to their family. All of these workers are essential. So I think we need to come up with some sort of plan. We're going to able to help out these, not just target certain industries, but it's as a whole.
Yeah, and Chris, we also learned from Goldman Sachs, they said in a note to clients that a Democratic blue wave would boost fiscal stimulus or lead to more fiscal stimulus, whether it's, coordinated COVID-19 relief, infrastructure spending, expanded health benefits. Do you agree, if we see a blue wave come this election season, are we going to see more in terms of action from the federal government?
Oh, I will, but I don't necessarily think that that's the right way to go. You could inject yourself with steroids to get yourself all big and strong, and that doesn't necessarily going to make things work. We have to come on solid ground. Where's this money going to come from? Are we going to ever be able? Are we going to be able to tax our way out of this? Are we going to put this on our kids and our grandkids' credit card from now until eternity? Yeah, it might work as a short-term fix. But at some point in time, we've got to come to some sort of sanity. I think people have forgotten exactly what $1 trillion actually is. We throw this number around right now, and it's staggering. You go back to the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act by Barack Obama. That was less than $1 trillion. We are talking trillions right now. Where is that going to come from? Does the tax rate increases that we see coming, is it going to actually pay for that? Not even close.
What's the solution then for struggling American workers and businesses if it's not coming in the form of financial aid from the federal government?
I'm big with encouraging entrepreneurs. I want to, in essence, I'd be like encouraging big banks out there to start working with the SBA, trying to get loans out to entrepreneurs and small business owners out there, because real job creation in this country always comes from small businesses. The bulk of jobs growth in the United States come from companies that are 5 years old and younger. We've got to basically bring back animal spirits to this country. That's key. Getting people out, wanting to build and grow, opening up some of these places. I mean, you see it when you're in New York City. You can see it all over the country, places that have shut down. Somebody's going to have to step in there and reopen that, and helping entrepreneurs and young people to go out there and encourage them to go out there and build and create, I think, is the best way to go.
But, you know, if you use the Fed as an example, who is encouraging borrowing for these small businesses and for individuals, there's only so far borrowed funds can go, or access to capital can go, if it's unsafe to open up your businesses, if infection rates are increasing in the region where you're trying to open up a business. So what is the solution there? If you know, your proposal is to encourage entrepreneurship, there are still risks as far as the virus itself.
Yeah, I take a risk when I get out of bed in the morning, too. I mean, that's just the reality of the situation. What if this never goes away? Are we going to continue to stay locked down and wait for a check for the government? What if there is never a vaccine for this? What if it doesn't work? We're going to have to obviously pay attention to people that are going to be at greater risk and look to protect them. But, you know, the Fed's program, that Main Street lending program, was a joke. It didn't make any sense whatsoever. And that's why nobody ever got involved with that program. It was a loan that only lasted for 5 years. It made no sense. And that's why nobody participated in that. Again, I want to empower the SBA and working with entrepreneurs to open up some of these places. At some point in time, people, we're going to have to get on with our lives, and we're going to have to realize that, guess what, the infection rate might come up, and we're going to have to live as responsibly as we possibly can. But to cower in fear is not a strategy.
Thanks so much for joining us today. We appreciate your time. That's Chris Markowski, host of the Watchdog on Wall Street Radio, as well as president of Markowski Investments.